So I'm going to get started moving into reviewing Season 2 of The Big Bang Theory. I wanted to note that the critic score goes way up for this one on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas the previous season only had a 59%. Season 2 has a 100% fresh rating and a 91% audience score, and I would agree with these. The second season is a very good season of the show, so let's get started with Season 2, Episode 1, The Bad Fish Paradigm. So the final episode of Season 1 ended with Leonard and Penny departing for their first date, and this season picks up a little bit later from there where they're returning home from their first date, and it seems that things have gone well. They're having casual conversation, and they even share a kiss when they're about to depart. Although when Leonard notices there's a camera watching them, he tries to ask Penny to go into her apartment, and she says she wants to take it slow, misunderstanding his meaning. And then when they discuss it more, she basically says they'll play it by ear going forward. And when Leonard goes back into his apartment, he confirms what he suspected, and that's that Howard and Raj were using the camera to spy on the end of his date. He asks Sheldon why he didn't stop them, and I love Sheldon's sarcastic response here is that they were very tricky. They played on his lack of interest in whatever they were all doing. So Leonard looked like he had a pretty good day with Penny, and he probably would have been fine if he had just let it go here, not overthink it. Unfortunately, he had a couple of friends who were willing to poke holes and try to make him feel insecure about it by asking him, questions like, did you plan a second date? How did she react to the kiss? Then they went to the tape to try to check this out and said she didn't look very impressed. I think it's a bad sign that she wants to slow things down, and this is where we get the title for the episode, because where Leonard thinks where she said slow it down means that she wants to enjoy it, Howard gives an alternate interpretation, and that's that she wants to slow it down as if saying, this fish is bad, I'm going to stop eating it and spit it out. Really, they just cause a lot of trouble for Leonard in this scene by giving him some unnecessary anxiety about what happened. So later, we see Penny coming down to do her laundry, and she bumps into Sheldon in the laundry room. And she takes the opportunity to ask him some questions. She wants to know if Leonard has ever dated a normal girl. And by that, she means a woman who is not super educated with a college degree. Penny tells Sheldon that she's worried because at their date, she told Leonard that she had graduated community college, and she in fact had not. And she's worried that Leonard's going to feel in the end that she's not smart enough to be with him. At the end of their conversation, Penny tells Sheldon that she wants him to keep this all a secret. That starts the problem because Penny at this point still doesn't know Sheldon quite enough to know that this is going to set his mind on fire. Sheldon doesn't like keeping secrets. He finds the whole thing very stressful and notes to Penny that he'll crack because he has a lot of nervous tics that'll give himself away. And Penny eventually tells Sheldon that this is something that friends do for each other, to which he says he doesn't really know when they became friends. But he seems to reluctantly agree to keep her secret. When Sheldon and Leonard bump into Penny on the stairs and Leonard tries to ask her out on a second date, she's a little elusive, saying she has to check her work schedule first. This immediately makes Leonard nervous, and he starts to think maybe he did make a mistake on the first date. When he tries to talk to Sheldon about it, Sheldon immediately is nervous because he doesn't want to reveal the information, and Leonard notices that Sheldon is acting odd, and so Sheldon gets nervous, feeling that he thinks he will give up the information, so he decides to go over to the Cheesecake Factory and basically tell Penny he wants her to release him from his obligation to keep the secret. She basically tells him no, Leonard can't find out, so he needs to figure out a way to make it work. So what does Sheldon do to figure out a way to make it work? He goes home and he tells Leonard that he's going to be moving out, so he doesn't really have a reason, just decided it's time to move on. A pretty funny part happens here when Roger and Howard come in. They're trying to help Leonard figure out why Sheldon might have gotten mad and decided to move out. And the three top reasons they give in my mind are, did you adjust the contrast on the TV settings? Did you pronounce the T in often? And did you make fun of trains? Leonard asks Sheldon where he's going to go, and he says until he finds a new permanent apartment, he's just going to take his emergency supply bag, and he's going to go stay with friends. Howard is smart here, and he just runs out. Raj gets caught by Sheldon, and he gets guilted basically into taking Sheldon in. So we do see Raj and Sheldon at Raj's apartment, and this is the first time we get to see Raj's apartment in the show. As they're sitting there trying to watch TV, Sheldon quickly gets on Raj's nerves, and Raj can't take it anymore, so he basically drops him off at Howard's house, telling Howard, tag, you're it. And the same thing ultimately happens there. As he's trying to go to bed at Howard's, he slowly gets on Howard's nerves to the point where Howard eventually takes him back to his apartment with Leonard. But not before giving him a glass of warm milk full of Valium. So when Sheldon comes back, he's a little out of it, and eventually, after a little bit of prodding, he reveals the secret Penny told him to Leonard. And this is where Leonard makes his big mistake. Rather than waiting to see if Penny decides to tell him this information herself or just let it go and move on and see how things go, he rushes over the next day to tell Penny that it's not a big deal, that she never finished community college, and that she could sign up for their local community college. Of course, Penny is insulted by this, and this kind of confirmed what she was worried about. She felt that Leonard wouldn't be as interested if he knew that she wasn't as educated. So Leonard kind of shoots himself in the foot on this one. He gets mad and closes the door, and Leonard says he realizes where he went wrong this time. Going back across the hall to end the episode, he notices that he's again being watched on camera by Raj and Howard. And that is Season 2, Episode 1, The Bad Fish Paradigm. So I think we can see in this episode that it's going to continue to be a rocky road for Leonard and Penny on their journey. I mean, as you can see in this episode, it seemed like they had an okay date. Things were going okay. Penny had some worries, but they might have had a chance to go on additional dates and see how things developed until Leonard shoved his foot in his mouth. And his heart might have been in the right place with his suggestions, but he didn't think about how it would be perceived by Penny. I would say this is a solid first episode of Season 2, and I would score it an 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next episode coming soon.